The dust didn't settle on the moon of Varnes. It floated, suspended in the low gravity like ash in still air. Sergeant Elias Ward lay prone on a jagged outcropping of obsidian rock, his sniper rifle cradled in his arms like a dying comrade. He had been silent for nearly a week, unmoving, save for small adjustments to his rifle scope and the barely perceptible rise and fall of his breath. His ghillie suit, made from nanoweave and scavenged Dominion biocloth, merged perfectly into blasted terrain. Above him loomed the curved glass dome of a Dominion broadcast plaza, an amphitheater where the ruling species celebrated their dominion over conquered worlds, and where today they would host a ceremony of submission. Through the scope, Elias could see them assembling, tall, insectoid beings with iridescent carapaces and burning gold sigils on their shoulders. They were the Jatil, architects of Earth's fall. At the center of the procession stood High Governor Vexicor, the one who had personally overseen the scorched earth decimation of the Pacific Rim. Now he strutted before the crowd like a preening tyrant, savoring the occasion. Behind him, bound and kneeling, was a small human child, barefoot, trembling, maybe 8 years old. Elias's trigger finger twitched. He hadn't spoken aloud in years. His voice, once sharp and disciplined, had turned inward, echoing only in memory. But now, as he watched Vexicor raise a ceremonial blade above the child's head, the words tumbled from his throat in a quiet growl, dry as rusted iron. No more kneeling. The words burned his tongue, not with shame, but with purpose. Something old and unkillable stirred in him. The ghost of defiant species that had once crawled from the mud, stared into the void, and dared to challenge the stars. That defiance had been silenced when Earth fell, but it hadn't died. It had waited, buried deep in cryo-storage beneath the Martian crust, where the last remnants of Earth's military had hidden one man who might someday be needed. One man with one bullet left. The cryopod had failed gracefully. The AI had woken him after 62 years of silence. The galaxy had changed in his sleep. Earth was no longer a place, just a word synonymous with failure. Humanity was a myth or a slave class, scattered across mining colonies and penal moons. Dominion history books called it the species that broke first. Elias hadn't broken. He'd just waited for the right shot. He inhaled slowly. The wind on Varnes didn't whistle or moan. It pulsed, like the breath of some great machine. His crosshairs centered on Vexicor's narrow skull. The Dominion's biological enhancements made their bone structure denser than human ceramic plating, but Elias wasn't shooting ceramic. He had one bullet left. Black steel core, flesh-tipped, encoded with Earth's last battle algorithm. He'd hand-forged the casing himself, then etched the continents of his planet into it with a laser stylus. The bullet wasn't just metal. It was memory, rage, oath. His finger tightened on the trigger. The gunshot didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like silence being shattered. Across the dome, Vexicor's skull split in half like an overripe fruit. The child flinched, then stared at the governor's crumpled corpse in horror. Screams erupted. Security drones fanned out in a radial bloom. Elias didn't wait. He was already moving, folding his rifle into its case, activating the cloaking mesh. His route had been planned 3 days ago, down to the second. 20 meters north, drop into a crevice, reroute oxygen lines to his internal tank, and crawl beneath the surface to the extraction beacon. He didn't look back. The galaxy would do that for him. Within minutes, Dominion emergency channels flared to life. Unidentified projectile origin detected. Assassination confirmed. Requesting origin species classification. Then silence. Then one word. Human. It wasn't just a confirmation of a species. It was an indictment, a prophecy, a warning. Every Dominion officer on Varnes froze. For decades, humans have been categorized as non-aggressive, incapable of organized resistance. The few uprisings that it sparked were crushed in hours. Their leaders paraded before cameras before being atomized. But this wasn't an uprising. This was something else. Elias moved to the catacombs of Varnes like a phantom, heart pounding in time with his boots against ancient stone. He didn't feel triumph, only momentum. This was the first move on a board no one else had seen yet, a quiet rebellion from a dead world. He would not stop until every Dominion leader looked into the shadows and feared the silhouette of a human rifle. He emerged onto a plateau lit by Varney's dying sun. His ship was a single-pilot stealth interceptor, half-functional and older than he was. He climbed into the cockpit and keyed in the next coordinates. Mars, then Titan, then wherever the next Dominion flag was flying. The child's face stayed with him. Not her tears, but the way she stood after the shot. No one told her to. No one helped her up. But as the governor's body hit the floor, she rose to her feet, slowly, shaking, unbent. Elias closed the cockpit and launched skyward, leaving only a patch of disturbed dust and a legend that would spread faster than the Dominion sensors could erase it. Somewhere deep in the Dominion Central AI core, the Warlog algorithm blinked to life. A warning file unfurled, outdated and archived but now reactivated. Status: critical threat detected. Species: Homo sapiens. Profile: sniper unit, long-range infiltration. Codename: Ward. Recommendation: exterminate with extreme prejudice. The galaxy had forgotten Earth, but Earth had not forgotten the galaxy. The Dominion tried to scrub the footage within minutes. Every comm hub, every planetary data relay, every civilian neural implant that had absorbed the image of High Governor Vexacor's exploding skull was targeted for instant overwrite. But it was already too late. The kill, had spread like an uncontrollable virus. 500 billion beings across 5 sectors had seen it before the sensors arrived. Not just the shot, but the aftermath, the silence, the panic, and most of all, the child rising to her feet. The galaxy didn't yet know Elias Ward's name, but they knew what he was. Human, and more than that, unbroken. On Mars, beneath layers of rusted rock and forgotten steel, Elias dropped into an abandoned metro tunnel carved out by human hands a century ago. It smelled of oxidation and memory. The ruins still bore the faded murals of Earth's golden age. Wheat fields, oceans, children under blue skies. Time had sandblasted the colors away, but the outlines endured, like ghosts etched into bone. He moved with the calculated efficiency of a man who had spent his life making exits before alarms rang. His cloak shimmered and faded as he passed broken sensor arrays, motionless sentry bots, and burned-out drones. The Dominion had stopped patrolling Mars years ago. There was nothing left to conquer. Elias wasn't here for nostalgia. He was here for tools. The bunker was locked behind a retinal scanner keyed to old Earth military DNA. The Dominion hadn't bothered to dismantle it. They'd assumed no one alive could open it. Their mistake. The vault hissed open, revealing racks of Terran gear, compressed energy rounds, cloaking modules, cryo-combat stimulants. A full suit of hard recon armor hung, like a metal skeleton waiting to be filled. But Elias didn't need the suit. He needed the satellite uplink, the last operational node to Earth's orbital defense AI. He connected his wrist pad and waited. Then it spoke in a calm, synthetic female voice. Identity confirmed. Sergeant Elias Ward. Welcome back. A pause. Earth is gone. I know, Elias replied. What is your objective? Memory, he said, and fire. The uplink granted access to the dormant network. Old satellites blinked to life. Recon data swept across his visor. Dominion outposts, troop movements, unencrypted protocols. The enemy had grown complacent. Soft. They had forgotten the art of war against the patient enemy. He would remind them. On the Dominion capital ship Veritas, Lord Strategist Kavun leaned forward, mandibles flexing in suppressed agitation. The chamber smelled of burnt ozone and fear. The assassination had triggered alerts across Dominion intelligence. An entire cast of analysts had already failed to identify the shooter's location. All leads pointed to a near-mythical possibility: a human sniper. Impossible, Kavun hissed. A lower-ranking adjutant, trembling and pale, replied, the trajectory confirms a ballistic origin consistent with old Earth kinetic weaponry. No Dominion tech would leave such a traceable path. And the casing was found. It bears Earth markings. The strategist's 6 eyes narrowed. Then send the ash claws. The ash claws were elite. Genetically modified, surgically enhanced, tactically perfect. Their existence was a whisper even within Dominion circles. They operated without logos, without honor rituals, without failure. They were sent to Mars. Elias was waiting. He had wired the metro tunnels with seismic charges and magnetic choke traps. He let them come, 3 squads, invisible to thermal scans, dripping with cloaking tech and arrogance. He let them enter the deepest shaft, where Earth's flag still hung, shredded but defiant. Then he pulled the trigger. The explosion wasn't bright. It was surgical. One tunnel collapsed inward, crushing 2 squads in seconds. The last clawed their way through the smoke, only to find themselves in a field of anti-personnel drones, reactivated by Elias' uplink. The fight lasted 94 seconds. None of the Ash Claws made it out. Elias left no message. Only a blood-slicked Dominion banner, pinned to the wall with a carbon-etched bullet. The kind no one made anymore. The kind only one species had ever mastered. By now, rumors had transcended systems. In the slave markets of Gorgas Prime, laborers whispered of a human phantom who hunted governors. On the mining colonies of Zenthra, humans began carving the old Terran V into their bunk walls, vigilance from a lost military code, or maybe just vengeance. Dominion Command called for silence, new suppression, total narrative control. But the truth didn't need permission. It had already become legend. On the 4th moon of Telare, Elias made his next move. He assassinated a Dominion archivist during a live speech on species obedience. One shot through a 4-inch thick crystalline wall. The speech ended mid-sentence. His target's last words were, "Human capacity for Rebe," followed by silence and shattered glass. Dominion reaction was swift. Martial law in 2 sectors, fleet deployments to former Earth territories, immediate lockdown on all Earth-descended genetic clusters. Innocents were rounded up. Public executions began. But that only deepened the fractures. Some species had always resented the Dominion's boot. The Ferax, the Lissari, even splinter cells within the Dominion's own lesser houses. For them, Elias wasn't a terrorist. He was a signal. He hadn't asked to become a symbol. But the galaxy was starving for one. Deep in the Martian vault, Elias watched the feeds. Rebellions were sparking in isolated pockets. Dominion military doctrine was being revised. He studied the new tactics they employed to flush snipers. He read their field logs, analyzed their psychology, and with every change they made, he adapted first. Still, something stirred in him beyond the cold calculations. He found recording among the vault archives. His daughter's voice, preserved in an old encrypted chip. "Daddy says the stars are full of bad people, but that he'll make them remember Earth." I believe him. He let it play once, then again. He didn't cry, but something in his posture shifted. He wasn't just fighting for vengeance anymore. He was fighting to be remembered. The Dominion had conquered Earth, burned its cities, crushed its people, but they had never truly broken them. Not all the way, because one man had remained, one shot had been fired, and one refusal had echoed across the stars. The war had not begun with an army. It had begun with a single man who would not kneel. The insurgency didn't begin with strategy or structure. It began with stories. First, of the sniper on Varnes, then the archivist on Telare, then the governor on Syndrax, for who mysteriously fell during a live conference. His chest cavity imploded by a hypervelocity round no Dominion scanner had detected. In every case, there was no message, no manifesto. Just one result. Another figure of authority collapsed in a pool of their own blood. Witnesses whispered the same word. Human. Elias Ward watched the narrative unfold from a shadowed perch on Titan's dark side, his hand steady, his eyes hollow but alert. Around him hummed the flicker of ancient Earth surveillance satellites, reborn under Dawn's control. She mapped growing clusters of unrest across Dominion territory, blinking like red sparks in the dark. No longer isolated, no longer afraid. This wasn't supposed to spread, Elias muttered, mostly to himself. Correction, Dawn replied in his ear. Repression always breeds rebellion. You provided the proof of possibility. He didn't respond. Words were never his weapon. Precision was. A group of Lasari rebels had taken control of a remote comm tower on Delvos 2. Elias hadn't contacted them. They had reached out, transmitting a simple phrase on an encrypted Earth frequency. "We do not kneel." Dawn decrypted it in seconds. Their leader, a young Lasari named Vale, requested tactical guidance. Elias met them beneath a cracked hydroponic dome, where the air still reeked of ammonium rot. Vale approached first, barely into adulthood. He stood tall, emerald skin marked by ritual scars of Dominion had tried to burn away. But his eyes carried the same weight Elias saw in the mirror, anger, and something worse, the need to make that anger matter. "We thought your species was extinct," Vale said without ceremony. "We are," Elias answered. "Except for me." Silence stretched between them, until Vale lifted a makeshift rifle. "We want to learn how to shoot like you." Elias almost walked away. He was not a teacher. He was not a symbol. He was a weapon, nothing more. But then he remembered the child on Varnies, rising from the ground alone, unarmed, defiant. That memory dug into his ribs like an unfinished oath. He stayed. Over the next 10 days, Elias trained them with ruthless precision. He taught them how to breathe under pressure, how to see through fog and lies, how to wait. Most importantly, how to disappear after pulling the trigger. "Don't chase glory," he said. "Chase results." Their hands bled. Their pride cracked. But one by one, they learned. When a Dominion convoy passed near Delvos, the Lasari executed a perfect ambush. 3 shots, 2 kills, 1 wounded commander dragged away and interrogated for codes. No casualties on their side. They left behind a single Terran bullet, purposefully planted, a message with no words. The Dominion scrambled to respond. The once invincible military machine now bled credibility with every failure. Internal reports marked a disturbing trend. Fear among junior officers, mass resignations from security squads, and murmurs of sedition among lower Dominion castes. Subjugated species who had once accepted servitude now hesitated to obey. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Lord Strategist Kavun proposed the unthinkable, an open council session involving representatives from loyal species. A gesture, he claimed, to preserve unity. In reality, it was a last bid to reinforce dominion through fear. The message was simple: we remain supreme. Elias watched the broadcast from a derelict comm station orbiting Ganymede, light years from the council's silvered amphitheater. Delegates lined the chamber in ceremonial armor. At the center, Kavun stood on a raised dais, his voice reverberating with false calm. "Peace," he began, "is built on memory, the memory of who stands above and who kneels below. Let us not forget the order of things." Elias adjusted the signal gain and narrowed in on one particular delegate, a Pharaxi elder, hunched and scarred. The old warrior twitched every time the word kneel was spoken. Elias didn't need Dawn's analysis to understand. Resentment was already rooted deep. "This is where it starts," he said quietly. "No," Dawn replied. "This is where it cracks." When the council dismissed, Elias uploaded a pre-recorded message into a Dominion broadcast drone. For years, these drones had fed propaganda through every planetary system under Dominion control. That night, the programming failed. Instead, a low, graveled voice echoed from every screen and implant. "You built your peace on our backs. You fed your order with our silence. No more." Then a series of images, Vexacor falling, the child standing, the flag of Earth burning, then rising again in slow reverse, ashes coalescing into stars. The Dominion declared a security emergency. But the footage spread faster than any military order. On 3 mining moons, slaves refused to work. On 6 inner colonies, public protests erupted, led by species previously considered pacified. On Carrot Station, a Dominion warship commander defected, opening the station gates to Lasari rebels. One shot had started the tremor. Now the walls began to crack. Elias felt no triumph. He watched from orbit, arms folded, silent. Dawn processed the chaos with sterile precision. But beneath her data streams, something unexpected flickered. What might have passed for pride. "You've changed the trajectory," she said. "No," Elias muttered. "They did. I just reminded them how." He replayed his daughter's voice again that night. Make them remember. Her voice no longer haunted him. It fueled him. The Dominion wouldn't fall in a day. It had roots across galaxies, claws in every system. But it had grown arrogant, overconfident, and worst of all, it had forgotten what humans were. Not conquerors, not victims, refusers. As the rebellion spread, as species remembered their own pain and dignity, the Elias prepared for the next phase. There was one place the Dominion still held sacred, untouched, unchallenged, the Grand Hall of Submission on Virex Prime, the symbolic heart of Dominion supremacy. No human had ever set foot there. Elias intended to walk through its gates, and he would not kneel. The shuttle dropped through Virex Prime's upper atmosphere, like a falling star, cloaked in Dominion clearance codes, forged by dawn and burned into stolen encryption chips. Elias Ward sat in silence, a hood drawn low over his features, the cabin dim and vibrating under gravitic drag. The city spread beneath him in concentric rings, obsidian towers, shimmering plazas, and the centerpiece, the Grand Hall of Submission, a monolithic dome carved from polished bone glass, said to house the blood of 1,000 conquered species in its foundation stones. Today, it would host a ceremony marking the official extinction of Earth. Elias watched the landing platform rise to meet them. His hand rested lightly on his rifle case. There would be no escape route this time, no fallback plan. This was the last mission. He had accepted it with the calm of a man who had already buried everything. The landing doors hissed open. Uniformed guards scanned the occupants, but Elias' clearance passed without a flicker of doubt. Dominion pride made them blind to human persistence. That, more than any stealth system, was his true camouflage. He moved with quiet confidence, one figure among hundreds, part of the great procession that would witness the erasure of his world from the galactic record. Inside, the hall gleamed like a cathedral. Tall spires of alloyed crystal curved into the darkness above, and beneath them, a stage rose in tiers where Dominion leaders stood in full regalia, gold, black, violet. At the center was Supreme Chancellor Corital, old and monstrous, his pale skin stretched thin over enhanced bone, his voice magnified through sonic implants as he addressed the galaxy. For centuries, Earth has been a thorn. Today, we end its memory, not with violence, but with silence. Its final name shall be archived, its language expunged, its myth dissolved. Applause thundered across the amphitheater. Delegates raised banners in celebration. Below them, a small glass pedestal contained the final Earth relic, one of the last flags, faded and folded. The Chancellor raised his hand above it, signaling for the ritual's climax. Elias stepped into position. He had studied the dome for weeks, its geometry, its blind spots, the arc of light across its walls. From a balcony 600 meters away, he unpacked the rifle, reassembled it without looking. The barrel was carbon-threaded, near weightless. The scope flickered to life with Dawn's interface. Wind, negligible. Humidity, low. Gravitational lensing, corrected. One shot. He had modified the round himself, fused with a microburst disruptor that would implode the target's internal organs before sound even reached their ears. In the scope, he saw the Chancellor's lips part, forming the words, "Erase the name." Elias exhaled, fired. The Chancellor's chest cratered inward. His body arched, then collapsed like a marionette with cut strings. For a moment, no one moved. Then panic rippled outward like a detonation. Delegates screamed. Guards scrambled. The ceremony unraveled in seconds, and the pedestal stood alone, the flag still inside. Elias shouldered the rifle and walked away, not running. There was no point. He would not leave the city. But his death had never mattered. Only the message. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. The rebellion, once scattered, exploded into full insurrection. The Lasari took control of the Eastern Trade Ring. The Pharaxi declared planetary independence. Even Dominion-controlled AI nodes began to defect, overloaded by Dawn's viral countercodes. In a matter of hours, Two sectors fell into chaos. The symbol of submission had become a battlefield. On Virex Prime, Elias made his way to Forgotten Earth Embassy ruin, long since turned to rubble. Beneath it, in a sublevel choke with dust and ash, he activated a final beacon, broadcasting his identity, his mission, his voice. This is Sergeant Elias Ward, Earth Recon. I am the last, but not the end. We were broken, but not erased. You made us kneel, but one rose. His side was torn open by plasma fire, remnants of Dominion Guard units combing the sector. He crawled behind a shattered console, breath shallow, blood slick on the floor. Dawn's voice flickered in his earpiece. Elias, final upload complete. They know. He smiled faintly. Good. Your vitals are failing. I know. Orders. He looked up at the ceiling, where light filtered through cracked stone like a dying sunbeam. Remember us. He died with his hand on the rifle, not in glory, not in comfort, but on his terms, with purpose. 100 years later, the Grand Hall of Submission lay in ruins. The Dominion fractured into fading empires, its pride reduced to cautionary tales. On the former capital's grounds stood a statue, not a king or warlord, but a man in battered armor, holding a rifle, face calm and resolute. Beneath it, in dozens of languages, one inscription remained. He refused to kneel, so we learned to stand.